Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome. Happy Thursday, September the 16th, 2021. This is Wake Up with Ray G. Y'all know who it is, man. Thank y'all for tapping in today. We got football. NFL is back. I will not bang the table. I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Jordan Richards, co-host and producer of the show. Jay, how are you this morning? The people probably saw that Tyrod Taylor graphic at the beginning and probably like, hell no, I don't want to watch this show. They're talking about the Texans to start. What's up, everybody in the comments and chats? Jay, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. You challenged me. 2 minutes before the show, you said you won't make a Tyrod Taylor graphic, and I had to do it. So we added it to the show. So we're gonna be talking about some Tyrod Taylor. I found a really cool stat about him. But I'm happy to be here, man. I had a little bit of a late night. You challenged me yesterday. You said, Jay, you're not really pulling your weight. I host the show. I do all this work, and you're not putting enough work on the show sheet. So today, there's no excuses. Loaded show sheet. Lots of stuff to talk about. New graphics. New everything. Week 2 preview. I'm fucking pumped. Let's get it.
All right. Jay's got to go do something real quick, so I'm going to carry the show for a little bit until he comes back because we're going to talk a little soccer. But good morning. Bruning, Jorgen from Germany, Dave, Zach, Paul, Rico, Top Dog. All right, so I'm starting the show today. We've got a ton to get into. Like, we're starting out with Cincinnati, Chicago. We got the over and under. We got all kinds of good stuff. We're going to win some money this week. But I want to start out with fantasy because I have asked a lot of people, Dynasty fantasy football. We got to start with this. And I will talk about this later in the week on my show on Saturday on FTN in the Lab, Dynasty Trade Show. Check that out on the Ray GQ YouTube channel. But I've asked a ton of people, what do you trade Patrick Mahomes for in Dynasty? Like, what is his value in Dynasty? In Superflex Dynasty leagues, what is Patrick Mahomes for? And I have yet to see a good trade. Like, I've seen people throw out in what I call, when I'm talking Dynasty, right, and we're talking trades, there's a lot of noise out there, right? Some people like to offer you, like, let's just say Jalen Hurts, a 2022 first, and then a litany of second and third round picks. I'm talking like 8 seconds and thirds. And the package looks really good, but in the reality, is that really what Patrick Mahomes is worth? I've seen some trades with like Ryan Tannehill, Myles Gaskin, 2 first-round picks in 2023 in a couple of seconds. Like, I'm seeing stuff where I'm just like, I don't really know. Like, it doesn't feel like Patrick Mahomes feels like the player in Dynasty that nobody really knows how to properly value him, even with a whole bunch of picks. Like, you're praying that those draft picks turn into half of what Patrick Mahomes is in Dynasty. It's just very hard to gauge value. But I made a trade acquiring Patrick Mahomes yesterday. I gave up 2 players to get Patrick Mahomes in a Superflex Dynasty League, one of the patron leagues. And 2 of these players are probably top 3 at their position, and they're all under the age of 22. So this individual got much younger, and, I got the best quarterback in football. So I ended up trading away Jonathan Taylor and Kyle Pitts to get Patrick Mahomes. And I want your opinion on that because it completely decimated my running back core. So my top 2 running backs in that league now are Tony Jones and Damien Harris, and my top tight ends are Mike Gesicki and Juwan Johnson. So clearly I had productive struggled this thing and built my team around the youth of like CeeDee Lamb and Kyle Pitts and Jonathan Taylor and Jalen Hurts. But an opportunity to get Patrick Mahomes in a 14-team Superflex league, I thought it was worth it. But I don't know. As I went to bed last night, I was thinking to myself, did I give up too much? Did I give up too much in order to acquire Patrick Mahomes? The right answer is probably no, but it still doesn't feel good. I want everybody, if you've acquired Patrick Mahomes in Dynasty, I want to know what you had to give up to get him. And again, I don't want to see any of these sorry-ass trades where you gave up a bunch of noise to get him. I just want to know what you guys have done or what you've seen because I've yet to see anything comparable to even JT and Kyle Pitts. I have not seen it yet. I've seen some bad Patrick Mahomes trades, and I've seen some not so good. Like, none of them have been good. So I just want to know. I'm asking the people, I need your help. I'll feature you on the show. I just want to see some Patrick Mahomes dynasty trades. What have you had to give up in order to acquire Patrick Mahomes? Now, done with that. Let's get into the NFL news. And Dave said, oh, man, somebody said I gave up too much. I dealt Kittle, Dobbins in a first. See, right here, somebody said, yep, you gave up too much. Pitts and Jonathan Taylor too much. Woof, man, that is brutal. That is brutal. Is there actually still the Michigan helmet in the back? Did no one want it? No, Jordan has to actually give that away. I think we were going to like put a graphic out for the individual that won. So the winner's already been picked. We just got to put a graphic together. Somebody won it.
Exactly.
Jordan knows who it is, and we'll get it sent out. There has been a winner to the Michigan helmet. I may want to keep it. If they beat Ohio State, that thing might be valuable, man.
It might be worth something.
It might be worth something. But let's get into the news, right? Jay, is this the morning run, or do I just fucking talk about it? I don't even know.
Just go into it. Just
okay,
go into
all right.
News.
So Odell Beckham Jr. out for Sunday's game. And I wish I knew he wasn't playing last week because I built a lot of my prop bets around freaking Odell Beckham Jr. And, while ACL injuries don't seem to be as debilitating as they once were in the past, you still see these guys coming off of ACL injury, and it takes them a minute to get into it, right? Saquon didn't look like Saquon week 1. He didn't get a full workload. Probably not going to have a full workload on a short week tonight versus the football team. And Odell Beckham, he was practicing. He looked good. He's running around, looks good in shorts, and he's still not going to play. So he's out versus the Texans. Jarvis Landry should feast. Anthony Schwartz, we'll probably talk about him in a little bit, as well as Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Wonder how that impacts Baker Mayfield and his passing yard lines. I don't know if we've seen a nice little dip with Odell being ruled out. Not ideal, but Cleveland still should win this matchup versus the Texans, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. More heartbreaking news for my Dallas Cowboys. It is just going downhill real quick. Demarcus Lawrence out 6 to 8 weeks after breaking his foot. Man, ever since I put that damn helmet on, bad things have happened. I will probably never do that again. It was a fun bit, but I feel that the bad juju from that big-ass helmet is rubbing off on my Cowboys. D-Law, arguably our best, I don't even think it's arguably, our best defensive player out 6 to 8 weeks. This is not good. Defensive line is not the strong suit of our Dallas Cowboys. Randy Gregory's going to have to step up. Osa's going to have to step up. This is, Micah Parsons probably plays a little more on the edge to try to generate some pass rush. But versus Justin Herbert, this ain't what you want because Rashawn Slater absolutely erased Chase Young in week 1. And now he's going to go up against probably a backup defensive end. So this is not looking good, and it's probably looking like start your Chargers versus the Cowboys. And I'm talking all of them, from Austin Eckler, Jared Cook, the receivers, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Justin Herbert may have a field day on Dallas. This is not good. Not good at all. Now, my newly coined second favorite team in the NFL, the Las Vegas Raiders, we have just lost Gerald McCoy for the season after tearing his ACL in the overtime victory win versus the Ravens. So anytime you lose interior defensive line talent, that does not help the offensive situation out. So we'll see how the Raiders overcome that. And for those of y'all asking, how the hell, Ray, are you a Raiders fan? I grew up in Las Vegas. That is home. We never, ever thought that we'd have a professional sports team. So all they showed growing up in high school and in middle school and elementary school were the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, at that time, mid to late 90s, the Cowboys were running things. So that's all they showed. That's how I became a Cowboys fan. But now that the Raiders actually have a team, even though I live down here in Dallas, I've got to root for the home team. So I am now officially a Raiders Nation and Cowboys Nation. I got dual allegiances here. So I need to see the Raiders do well. Jay, are you back from doing whatever the hell else you were doing and can talk about
this
Messi, Neymar?
I'm always
all
here.
Right, it's
Don't
on
worry.
you, baby.
So yesterday was the first day that PSG had finally rolled out their starting lineup with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe all together for their Champions League game yesterday. Although it was kind of a bigger headline than it really needed to be. It's like the introduction. I know it's a big thing. They brought on Messi. They're all starting for the first time. But they didn't win the game. They tied the game, so they're still sitting mid-table in Group A of Champions League right now. It's a cool story. It's fun for soccer fans, but ultimately it didn't really matter because they couldn't even win the game. So I thought it was kind of overblown a little bit personally, but that's just how I am. But it's cool, and so hopefully they can play well. Hopefully they can gel together. It's going to take time, of course. It was their first time ever playing together, starting together at least. But I think eventually they're going to be just fine. They're going to be rolling. Whether or not they can win Champions League, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of good teams out there, but PSG definitely formidable with Messi, Neymar, Mbappe. Great team headed forward. But for them not to win is kind of just like makes the story a little bit less intriguing for me personally. How do you feel about that, Ray?
Well, Jorgen said there's rumors that Messi is not happy because he can't find a house and still has to live in a hotel. Is that true?
But
or is it
okay,
just-
okay, but even if it's okay, so it may be true, but there's not a house out there Messi can't afford. So if he can't,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, he can't find a house. Okay, Messi, like, you ain't broke, bro. Like, just go buy a house. If you're really sick of the hotel, just buy one. That's my personal opinion.
I mean,
You
but
know,
is
maybe
this true? Like he's not happy because he
ah,
can't.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty weird. I mean, you know, you don't want to be living in a hotel, but
That's
I
rich
mean, he
people
could buy a
problems,
house.
bro.
And
Them
you know,
rich
he
people
could buy a
problems.
house. He's
We don't
getting
have-
paid. I don't know how much he's getting paid, but he was getting paid like $50 million a year. He gets paid like over $1 million a week.
It's not enough. He needs more. He needs more, man.
So,
He needs
you
more.
know,
He
I don't
lived
know.
in
It's
Barcelona outside. He actually lived outside in Barcelona, outdoors.
Oh,
Top
them
Dog and
journalists, all
Eric
this-
Crocker are getting on me saying I'm set hopping over to the Raiders. It's the hometown, man. It's the hometown, bro. I'm gonna get a Raiders helmet once we get this Hey, Croc, you want me to send you this Michigan helmet, big dog? I'll send you this joint. But all right, where are we at now? So is that all the
Get to
news?
the
Are we
game
done with the
previews.
news? Game previews?
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's beat the. Is it beat the? Dude, I don't even know where.
Beat
we
the
at.
rush.
Is it beat the rush? Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Wake up! This is Beat the Rush.
Get out of the way, jackass!
All right, so Jay, you developed a very clean graphic for us to take a look at these lines this week. This is just beautiful. I'm just so proud of the work that you put in, and I'm sure everybody watching.
you.
Hey, Troy King said it, man. Shout out to the dude on the right. Shout out to dude on the
Let's
right
go.
and dude on the left. These
You
are
know
new
you know.
nicknames. People on YouTube just say the dude on the right, the dude on the left. But Cincinnati versus Chicago, the first game that we have on tap here. Chicago is favored by 2.5, so they got to win by a field goal. Over under 45.5 points. And the money line, if you just take Chicago on the money line, minus 142 price. Cincinnati plus 121. Where are you at just with this game? And I have not gone through the slate yet to even see which teams I like more than others. So this is sort of my first time seeing it. And are these DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM? Where'd you get
No,
these
these
lines
are
from?
these are just these are the consensus odds. So if you go to ftn.com/bets on the NFL side, you can look at the NFL odds, and they will actually show you the odds across all the legal sports books in your state. And so this is the consensus, odds as far as kind of it's a number that's kind of generated amongst all the sports books.
Nice.
So the money lines, spreads, everything is all kind of generated across the books and kind of averaged out. But for this game, there's a lot of people who are putting the Bears on upset alert because the Bengals did look pretty good, especially on the defensive side. I actually watched their game yesterday against Minnesota. They did play pretty well. And so I think if that offense can kind of take another step forward and continue to play well, Joe Mixon is the guy that I'm like super intrigued by in this game. I made this graphic, the Mixon Express over under 16.5 carries. And I wanted to talk about this prop particularly because he had 29 carries last game. 29 carries, and he had 85% of the total carry load. That includes Joe Burrow's 1 carry. That includes Jamar Chase's 1 carry and Samaje Perine 5 carries. This, again, was a close game against Minnesota. They really wanted to protect Joe Burrow, and they really wanted to pound the rock with Joe Mixon. I think that this same type of game script is going to build itself again in this game against Chicago. Chicago, they played pretty well. Darrell Henderson rushed the ball 16 times against them. But Matt Stafford, again, much more apt to throw the ball in play action, throw the ball deep, all these things. But Mixon, if he's going to be the focal point of this offense to the point of 25 to 30 carries in close games, again, 2.5 spread, not a very high over-under, not expecting to be a blowout. Joe Burrow played really well, but he didn't throw the ball a ton like he did when he first came into the NFL. So if they protect him with Mixon, this number is extremely beatable. And I believe Elliot Chris was the one who kind of put it into my mind last week. I believe he hit it at 15.5. Obviously, Mixon almost doubled that. 16.5 should be almost a sure thing if the game remains close like it did last week. Even though the Bengals went to overtime, that may only add 5 or so carries, which puts them still in the 20 to 24 range weekly. So much, much higher than 16.5.
Yeah, and I'm with you. If the over-under, total is 45.5, the implied team total is pretty low. It's about, 3 touchdowns apiece. They're not going to be airing it out. And Cincinnati, was 11th in plays last week, per 11th in plays per 60 minutes. The Bears were 10th in plays per 60 minutes. So that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause. They are running a ton of plays. You said the Bears typically play at a slower pace, but were forced to speed it up in week 1 versus that high-flying Rams offense. Here's my struggle with this one. It's the Chicago's pass defense is not good at all, and we saw them get exploited last week versus the Rams. And I'd say that Cincinnati's passing attack is more lethal than the Rams. I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd is a little more problematic than Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Van Jefferson, Higbee, Deshaun Jackson. So I think Jamar Chase is really in line for a big game, as well as T. Higgins, one of T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. We kind of talked about this, privately, Jay, and a lot of people were saying that T. Higgins is probably the guy for 2021, right? We know in Dynasty, Jamar Chase, the long-term future at the position. I don't know, man. It seems like Burrow, Chase, they're going to force this to happen like now. It just seems like they are going to force that connection to happen. And if it was anything like week 1, that's a profitable connection to force. Like, that's going to be some good synergy and chemistry there between those two. So when you're looking at Cincinnati, what's Burrow's over-under passing yard line at? He's at
265
and a half. He had 261 last week. Over-under 1.5 passing touchdowns. If you take the under, that's plus odds, plus 105. If you take the over, minus 130. So not juiced up at all there. He had 2 touchdowns last week. He only had 2 rushing yard lines.
I think last week.
The rushing yards are interesting for quarterbacks because you only need them to scramble like one time to hit, right? But Burrow coming off of the knee injury. But I do think he'll have some opportunity to scramble versus Chicago with Khalil Mack rushing the passer, Akeem Hicks in the middle. There may be some pressure upfield that pushes Burrow out of the pocket to run a little bit. So 7.5 over under Joe Burrow rushing yards. I really kind of like the over on that one, man. Tell me, am I crazy?
So the only reason why I think you're crazy is because he only ran the ball once last week.
Yeah.
So he ran the ball twice or something like that.
No,
so
2 yards on one carry. 1 carry.
2 yards on one carry.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, is he still skittish? Is he still kind of afraid to run? And I think in week 2, he still will be a little bit. I kind of expect him to just focus on the passing game, focus on his footwork, and not be so concerned with running the ball for yardage. Especially early on in his young career, coming off this injury. We saw the same thing with Dak, right? Dak probably for about the first half or so, at least the first quarter and a half, he was not running. He was running away from defenders. He wasn't running to gain yards. Then eventually he started to realize, you know what? I got to do whatever I got to do. I got to overcome my fears, his hesitancy, all that stuff. Burrow, I don't think is quite there yet. And that's why I want to throw the number out there. 7.5. He only had 1 carry for 2 yards last week.
I kind of like it, though.
He can hit it. He can hit it if he's healthy and he's confident.
Well, if he's out there, I'm just going to assume health. If he's out there, I'm assuming health.
But it's confidence too. It's trusting your body, and when they talk about these things with fractures a lot, trusting your body that it's healed. For him, it's ligaments, right? Knowing that he has his base, he's strong, he feels good about it, and he's willing to run. Those are all 2 things that just come with confidence. We know that he's pretty healthy. He's capable of playing. Whether or not he should be running, according to the doctors, we don't know that. But to see only 1 carry yesterday was one reason I thought maybe you want to take the under there, because you never know. Maybe he doesn't run it all again.
All right. Well, we know that's not going to happen. He's going to run again. But let's take a look at the receivers. So we talked Jamar Chase. His over-under receiving yard total, 56.5. Receptions right at last week, 4.5. Will he hit 5 again? He had 5 for 101 last week. T. Higgins over-under a bit higher at 62.5. And 5.5 receptions. Last week, he was 4 for 5 for 58. And then Tyler Boyd, his over-under is 50.5 receiving yards and 4.5 receptions. So, I mean, they're pretty even with these 3 wide receivers. You've got an interesting tidbit here on Tyler Boyd. He's got the 8th best matchup this week, according to Jeff Ratcliffe's matchup tools, as he will take on Marquis Christian in the slot. And Marquis Christian, interesting story about him. He played at Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls, Texas, and he played against my former school that I worked at in the athletic department, Texas A&M Commerce. He was like All-American, defensive back, really, really good at Midwestern State. Like, watching him in college, I was like, oh, that dude's going to go to the NFL. He's going to be an NFL player. Bounced around a little bit, but, not a high pedigree guy. He was a safety in college, so it's interesting seeing a former college safety convert to NFL defensive back. And just based off of what I know about Marquise Christian and Tyler Boyd, I would take the Tyler Boyd matchup in that. The issue is he going to get the targets? Is he going to allow, is Tyler Boyd going to get the targets from Burrow? Marquise Christian, and I didn't even know this, allowed an 83% catch percentage and 0.29 fantasy points per route run in week 1. And that speaks to, like, my pre-draft evaluation.
It's not even just route run. That's not just for, like, week 1. That's, like, period. So across all of Jeff Rackford for as long as he's been charting this player, so his matchup tool is extensive. It's not just week 1.
I would be exploiting Tyler Boyd. Marquise Christian, if that's who he's matched up against, Tyler Boyd will win that matchup probably 9 out of 10 times. And that's just Christian was a safety in college, and you see he's given up damn near 100% catch rate when he's thrown at, and you've got to deal with one of the better slot receivers in the NFL. Anything else from the Bengals that you want to touch on? I don't think there's anybody else of consequence. I just think it's interesting. Joe Mixon is about to get the CMC treatment. I've talked about Chris Evans in Dynasty, and I still think Chris Evans is a player that you want in Dynasty, but unless, and I've got a knock on the table, I'm sorry, I won't pound it, knock on wood, there's injury to Joe Mixon. The way that he was used week 1, he's just going to take 80% of the workload every week, which leaves nothing for anybody else. So let's move on to the Chicago Bears. And we got to start with the man of the hour, somebody that I've just been pumping up all damn week, and that's David Montgomery, man. His over-under rushing yard lines. I actually caught it when it opened up at 59 and a half. So right now his over-under total is 64.5 for David Montgomery. We know that he had over 100 yards against the league's best defense last season. I mean, that's what he had, right? So. I like Monty over 64.5 versus Cincinnati. I know they kind of gave Dalvin Cook a little bit of trouble for a little bit, right? Cook still got his. But, with Andy Dalton there, I just don't think they're going to throw the ball as much as we want. I don't believe they've got the confidence in Andy Dalton to do it. And this might actually be the game, Jay, where they pull his ass and put Justin Fields on the field.
We can only hope, right? We can only hope. And that, again, would only help David Montgomery. And so I just think the way he looked last week, I just don't see a situation where he doesn't quite make it happen. To Dalvin Cook's point, he had 20 carries for 61 yards. So he didn't quite hit this number. But to be honest, Minnesota looked terrible. Their offensive line was terrible. And you talk about Kirk Cousins, he was running for his life. There was tons of flags. There was just no continuity on the offensive line at all. When you talk about the Bears, we gave their offensive line a lot of flack in the offseason. We said, they can't protect Justin Fields, so don't put him out there. But they actually kind of held their own. And Dave Montgomery did look excellent behind that offensive line. And he did a lot himself, of course. But he looked a lot better than we expected. And, going against that Rams defensive line, you have to make things happen. And Dave Montgomery was able to do that. And so I think playing against a much more inferior defensive line for the Bengals, while they looked a little bit better in week 1, I do think it's still going to be Monty going wild for the Bears to have any shot of winning this game personally.
So question for you all in the chat, and I've talked about this a couple of times, and I'm gonna continue to talk about it. David Montgomery is a top what running back in the NFL, Jordan? Right now, David Montgomery is a top what?
I'd probably give him a top 8 running back in the NFL.
Okay, just quickly rattle off the 8 running backs you've got, or the 7 running backs ahead of David Montgomery.
So I'm thinking Christian McCaffrey. I'm thinking Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara. I would give Jonathan Taylor the nod. I would probably give Cam Akers the nod. I would consider J.K. Dobbins, but I think they're both very, very close.
No.
J.K. Dobbins is misused in Baltimore, personally.
No.
I'm trying to think of other guys who would be higher than David Montgomery off the top of my head. Like I said already, I wouldn't say Zeke over him. I'm trying to think of who else there is in the league that I'd put over him, but not too many guys though. Like it's probably about 6 or 7 maybe, if I'm being honest about the guys I just nailed.
Wrong.
Oh my God, so loud.
Wrong.
You're gonna blow these people's. Oh, Nick Chubb. Yeah, Nick Chubb is definitely
Derrick Henry. I got Christian McCaffrey.
Derrick Henry, yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. That's 5. Jonathan Taylor.
And then you wouldn't say Cam Akers when healthy?
No. I'm talking right now. I'm just right now. When healthy, yes, but right now, I think it's those 6. I think.
And then
it's
what
those
about
6.
Mixon? That's close right now. Mixon looked good.
Yeah, you could put Mixon over Monty. I wouldn't argue
I'd say
that.
they're very close.
Would you put Aaron Jones over David Montgomery? No.
Nah.
No.
I want to see
Dude,
him outside of that system.
Dude's a top 10 running back, man. Dude's a top
Oh, yeah.
10 running back. Okay, let me ask you this. Najee Harris, and we talked about this, Najee Harris or David Montgomery?
No, I can't take Najee over him right now. I like what I've seen from David Montgomery already.
Oh,
Swift.
Swizzy.
Yeah, that's
Swift.
a good
I think
point.
Swift.
Yeah, there's a case to be made for Swift for sure.
So at worst, he's a
Casey,
top 10 running back. He's a top 10 running back, just turned 24 years old. Just putting it out there, man. David Montgomery's a beast, dude. David Montgomery's a beast. And that offensive line isn't very good, and he's still making it happen. So I'm excited for him. I think he's going to be real good this season in fantasy and already off to a good start. A-Rob, over under 5.5 receptions. The juice is on the under. 71.5 yards seems like a lot, but he did have 11 targets, 6 catches, only 35 yards. They used them all weird, man. Like he was running short routes, like literally like 3-yard routes.
Yeah.
3.8 A-dot average depth of target, which is terrible, as Jordan says. But A-Rob has the third best matchup according to Jeff Ratcliffe's matchup tool at FTN. The third best for Allen Robinson. Who's he going to go up against? William Jackson? Is he going up against William Jackson? Or Chidobe Awuzie? Hey,
it was
Croc.
Awuzie. That's who it was, I think.
Hey, Croc, A-Rob
but
or
it's gonna be
Chidobe
bad.
Awuzie? That's going to be bad. I'm so glad Dallas let go of Chidobe Awuzie. Croc is is the defensive back guru. Who you got, Big Croc?
Yes, sir.
Big Croc, A-Rob or Chidobe Awuzie? I mean, the issue isn't Allen Robinson, though. The issue is Andy Dalton. Like, is Andy Dalton going to be able to hit him to connect? But that's a great matchup for Allen Robinson. And I mean, somebody said the next gen chart of Allen Robinson was vomitable. Yeah, Willie Jackson is gone. They replaced William Jackson with Awuzie.
Yeah,
so.
it's Awuzie, and he averages 0.35 yards per route run and a 63% catch rate. It's going to be
Good
rough
luck.
for him.
Again,
The problem is the usage of Allen Robinson. Are they going to actually use him correctly in this game, or is he going to be used like he was last week? Because when I just pulled up the numbers, I was looking. Looking. Go.
No, I was going to say,
Yeah.
he just said it's a silly ass question. Why would you even ask me that? Go ahead, Jay.
But yeah, so I was looking up the numbers, and I saw that 71.5. Like you, I was like, I don't know about that. That's a high number. But then seeing that Ratcliffe has A-Rob as third best matchup, his third best matchup guy last week was none other than Antonio Brown, who went over 100 and scored a touchdown.
Ratcliffe.
Yeah,
Ratcliffe.
Ratcliffe dropping bombs, and I'm telling you, go to subscribe to FTN, FTNFantasy.com.
Okay.
Go get a platinum package. Use code RayGQ or all gas, whatever it is. Get yourself to save some money. So that's where I'm on the fence, and I don't love this number. I don't love that 71.5. I do think the receptions are going to be there, though.
I do
the receptions seem pretty good because he
I
saw
do
the
too.
targets.
I do too.
But
I actually put a
it's
note.
The yards, I'm like,
I
don't
think
know.
when we parlay this game, I'll take the receptions. Like I like the receptions. I like David Montgomery's lines. I think this is a matchup that we can hit. I think this is a matchup. This is an exploitable matchup from Cincinnati's side because of how bad Chicago's pass defense looked week 1 and how low the receiving lines are. I feel good about taking Chase over 56.5 yards, over 4.5 receptions. I feel good about David Montgomery's rushing yards. I feel really good about Allen Robinson's receptions. And, Joe Mixon, his carry total, 16.5, over. I think we can hit. This is an exploitable parlay matchup. We are definitely going to put a unit or half a unit on this one. We will build the parlay prop out. I really am intrigued by the Cincinnati-Chicago game. So let's get it. And let's turn to the Houston Texans. What are we going to look at? We got the Texans and the Browns. And look at these money. Look at the money line here. Wow.
Yeah, money's on the Browns.
I mean, all of the money is on the Browns. All of it. I mean, this is
This
good
spread,
grief.
I don't know what it opened at. I think it opened at 10.5 or an 11.5 and got bet up to 12.5 now. And honestly, could see even 13 or 13.5 by kickoff. 12.5 is kind of a weird spread because they don't have to win. Like, they still win by 2 touchdowns. So it sometimes gets pushed all the way to 13.5 because it's still just a 2-touchdown game. I don't know what to make of Houston. Like, they did look great against, the league, one of the league's worst defenses, one of the league's worst coach teams, one of the league's worst, pretty much everything across the board. But Tyrod did look pretty good, and so I have to give him credit for that, even against a bad Jacksonville team. But the Browns are going to control the ball. They're going to run like crazy. Nick Chubb is probably going to go for 100 yards. His over-under is 85.5,
Oh,
12.5
man.
receiving yards. So it's just like, I just don't really know how Houston's going to stay in this game unless Tyrod has like a league-winning performance. It's just because that defense on Texans isn't very good either. I just think it's going to be ball control from Cleveland. They're going to run the ball like crazy. Baker's probably not going to hit his over. His over is 261.5 and 1.5 touchdowns. The touchdowns maybe he could hit because if they decide to throw the ball in the end zone. But I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about it. I just don't love the matchups, period, for this team. I don't think you want to bet it because are you really going to take Cleveland at minus 621? No. I don't love the over-under. If you want to take Cleveland on the spread, you're feeling a little bold. I know Bruning, if you're feeling frisky.
Dude, minus 12.5 and maybe even minus 13 when Houston, they say what you want about the Texans, and I know it was against the Jaguars, but they showed something offensively. Mark Ingram looked spry. Yeah. Brandon Cooks did his thing as always, and Ty God played extremely well. I don't think I'm with you. I think Cleveland will win this game, and I do think Nick Chubb is going to go off. I think he's going to absolutely shred. He's going to go for over 100, man. I think he's over 100 lock. I wouldn't touch the receiving yards. And quite frankly, I wouldn't really mess with Kareem Hunt. Like, he barely hit his prop last week. Like, I barely got that on his final. Yeah. I think we had over under 2.5 receptions. He had 3. I think we had over under 16.5 yards. He ended up with like 29. It was off of that last screenplay. So I just don't like his usage. It's Nick Chubb's show, right? It's the Nick Chubb show.
Yeah.
But I think Chubb is going over 85.5 rushing yards. He's going to go off this week. But what was an interesting one for Cleveland is Anthony Schwartz, man. Anthony Schwartz over under 16.5, his longest reception on the day. And Anthony Schwartz is somebody I forgot to talk about in the rookie report because he had a very impressive week 1. Like in the NFL after week 1, he's 10th in air yards with 126, which is great. He's 9th in air yard share at 46.8. His average target distance, 3rd in the NFL after 1 week, 25.2 yards average target distance. He had 3 deep targets in week 1, number 4 in the NFL. And man, and he still had 64 unrealized air yards in that game. Did nothing after the catch, 7 yards after the catch. So all those air yards, nothing after the catch. No Odell Beckham. Where are you at with the world-class speedster Anthony Schwartz and his longest reception prop at 16.5?
I love this number, and I got to give the FTN crew a lot of credit for this one. They were talking about this one in the Slack. So again, like you mentioned, his longest reception number is 16.5, and his average depth of target was 25.2 yards. Last week, he had 3 receptions on 5 targets for 69 yards. So again, every reception going way over that number, averaging almost 23 yards per reception. But then even on top of that, even if you want to go after his receiving yard number, it's still only 29.5. So he had 69 yards last week. If maybe you think he doesn't get 16 yards for 1 reception, okay, cool. But you could still get his over on his actual receiving yards at 30 yards. I think this is just a stupidly low number for a guy who is literally world-class fast, track speed, ran, I believe, a 4.28 or something like that. Like the fastest player at Auburn, probably the fastest player in the SEC period last year. Comparable to Jalen Waddle, but without the actual accolades. He's going to get deep, and with no Odell Beckham Jr., he's going to play a lot of snaps. And I think this is just a very easy number for him to hit. For a speedster who was getting targeted last week, seems like free money.
Well, I mean, if you're going to bet the over 16.5 on the longest reception, I would just take the over on the receiving yards. No Odell Beckham Jr., the Houston Texans secondary, they traded away their best cornerback in Robbie Anderson, Nickel Roby Anderson, Bradley Roby. One of these Robies are there. I kind of like this, man. If I'm just looking at this right now, I think Nick Chubb, 2 Anthony Schwartz plays, and then we can find something else to build this one out. Brandon Cooks, I kind of like his over, honestly, Jay. I know you said you're not too bullish on, but if Cleveland does get out, Brandon Cooks over 60.5. I mean, that's just what Brandon Cooks does, right?
Yeah.
His
And
reception
they
total.
they exploited Tyreek Hill exploited that defense too, right? So
Yeah,
similar mold,
yeah.
like a smaller, fast receiver can get downfield. I think again, Brandon Cooks can actually beat that number pretty easily as well.
Now
Tyler just has to hit him, which is where I'm kind of worried.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I mean I don't feel as good, so I'm not gonna force it. I still think I'm a little worried about that one, so I'm not gonna force it. If I were gonna do anything that I just feel really good about in this one, it would be a 3-leg parlay. I would do Anthony Schwartz, both of his bets, over 16.5 for the longest reception, over 29.5 yards, get 30 Anthony Schwartz, and then Nick Chubb's over rushing yard totals. Those are the only ones I feel good about because Baker Mayfield could go out there and bombs away a couple of plays, score a couple of touchdowns, have a bunch of yards. So I think for me, that's about all I would do in this one. Tyrod Taylor, did we talk about his over-under 224.5 passing yards? Let's get Tyrod up. You had an interesting stat. Over under 22.5 rushing yards for Ty God. What do you think about that?
All right, so Tyrod Taylor last week rushed for 40 yards on 4 carries against the Jaguars, but since 2015, he's averaged 28.5 rushing yards per game when he started more than 3 games in a season. So again, not only is he hitting this number regularly, but he's going way over on this number on a per game basis since 2015. And he did it again just last week. So that's why I was just like, you know what? He's got to be able to hit this number. I think there's a lot of good numbers out there, but this may be one of the best for a rushing quarterback who's going to be playing against a super talented defensive line, probably running for his life half the game. Tyrod's going to have to scramble. He's going to have to make plays with his legs. I think the game script and just kind of the narrative around this game period, Tyrod is probably going to be able to hit this number pretty easily and could honestly even do it on one run in the first quarter. It's that low of a number, and he hits it regularly throughout his career.
So would you have more confidence in his longest rush at over under 11.5 or the total rushing yards at 22.5 where you're getting minus 134 price, and if you go with his longest rush, it's minus 115?
I think I'd still rather have the rushing yards just because you have the whole game to get it. If for some reason he only rushes for like 10 yards every time and he kind of slowly works away at that defense, I could see that happening. But yeah, 11.5 is more than a beatable number for him. We see quarterbacks rush for 15 yards, 20 yards sometimes. Once they leave the pocket, it's easy for them to get 15, 20 yards sometimes, but you never know. And so it is a risk there, but I do like that number a lot at 22.5, and I would be willing to take a bet on the longest rush if you want that.
All right. We'll see. I mean, you said since 2015, that's his average. So, I mean, that's the data, man. And it sounds good. So we'll see what we want to do with that one. Like I said, we'll build all these out and tweet them out or do something. Or at least if you really want, what is it? What's the damn website? FTN Bets. Like you can follow
the
me
bet
on
tracker. Yeah.
The bet tracker. We'll find the link for that. The bet tracker. I'll have all my stuff there. My win-loss record is there. So if you really want to see what we bet, just follow the bet tracker. Everything is there for everybody. Like everybody. Elliot, everybody that's betting, Kevin Adams. FTN Bet Tracker is where you need to be.
I'm pretty sure it's paywalled, though. So just keep that in mind. But we can still tweet them out, though. We can still tweet them out.
Well, shit, pay for it, man. Pay for good stuff. If you want to, I don't know how much it costs, but use the promo code ALLGAS and you can save something on the checkout. Go. Like, oh, man, you got to pay for stuff these days, man. But if it helps you win a whole bunch of money, people winning. Every time I get on Twitter, like, somebody who just won $13,000 from FTN's thing, and I'm just like, why can't it be me, man? I just want to win like $50 and I'll be happy. So go pay for it. Use all gas. Save something. Next game, Rams versus the Colts. Rams are favored, minus 194 on the money line. The spread, -4 for the Rams, over under 48. And Indianapolis, plus 167 on the money line. I think we can all agree we believe the Rams should win this game. Offensively and defensively, they're just a better team. I have more confidence and more faith in Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. And I do not have a lot of faith in Carson Wentz. I went back and watched that game just because I wanted to watch Jonathan Taylor. Carson Wentz was terrible.
Terrible. Oh, my God.
He was terrible, man. Listen, Andy's going to be in the market for a quarterback as well. He was not good at all. And now he has to deal with Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. I just think this could get ugly for Indianapolis. What is the key to victory for the Colts? Because I don't think they'll just be able to slam Jonathan Taylor up the middle. Maybe. I mean, hell,
Maybe.
Monty had 100, but let's be real. Half of that came off of one run. Like, literally.
Yeah.
Over half of David Montgomery's yards came off of one run. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not betting the Colts to win this game at all. But maybe there's some matchups inside of this game that we can exploit. So let's take a look at Matthew Stafford. Matt Stafford over under 277.5 passing yards and 1.5 touchdowns. I like the touchdown prop. He's going to throw for 2 touchdowns minimum. I mean, that seems like a given.
Minus 149 though, so the bettors are with you for sure.
Well, I'll just parlay it. You gotta parlay that because it ain't even going to make you any money. Darrell Henderson over under 14.5 carries and over under 54.5 yards. Jay,
Rushing yards.
Yeah, I like this. Hendo looked good, man. Like, Hendo looked good to me. He looked good to me versus the Bears.
He did look good, but what I'm worried about is the lack of carry volume, right? So while he did get the yardage, his carries are much closer to the prop. So it's not quite as exploitable as we saw with Joe Mixon, where Joe Mixon had a 16.5 carry number, but carried the ball 25 times in week 1 with a similar game script. Now, again, we could see a similar game script again, I don't think that the Colts are very good, and they got destroyed in the deep passing game by the Seahawks.
Yeah, Tyler
Lockett
my fear lit their ass up, man.
Tyler Lockett lit them up. DK had a touchdown. Gerald Everett played well. So that's my only fear. Like, I could see a similar play action approach that the Seahawks employed to beat the Colts again this week because we know that's what the Rams do well. That doesn't bode well for Henderson, and so that's where I'm just worried about the number overall. He could hit it. It's a very beatable number at 54.5. I am a little bit worried, though, about the volume, if it will be there. Maybe Sony gets more involved. Maybe they involve some other guys. I don't really know exactly how it's going to work. But Henderson was the snap share bell cow for sure, as far as that's concerned. But he still didn't see a whole lot of volume.
Listen, I'm not. We saw no evidence of Sony Michel being a threat to Darrell Henderson whatsoever. Like, I get that's a maybe.
Not a threat, but I'm just saying, like, he still only saw 16 carries, and I believe he had 85% snap share. So he's still, like, it's not crazy to think even a 2 or 3 carries can make a difference.
Sean McVay's got a new toy. He's got a quarterback that can throw the ball. It unlocks probably 70% of the playbook that was behind a chastity belt with Jared Goff. So now he can let his stuff hang and swing around. So he's excited. He's got Matthew Stafford there. So, yeah, I can see why the carry total may not be there. And that's why I like Matthew Stafford over 1.5 touchdowns. They're going to be able to throw on them. And one of the commenters said Darius Leonard was irrelevant in that game. And as I watched it back, he did not do much. Now, he did have a good forced fumble on Chris Carson. He did have a great – and it was beautiful. The All-22 was beautiful. But 54.5 seems a little light for Henderson. Every time I watch Henderson, when he's healthy and on the field, it seems like he gets like 6 yards a carry. He's very explosive, man. So I think he could be one of the guys that hit that on one carry. He can be the dude that does. And unlike David Montgomery, if Hendo gets to the open field, he's probably going to score. Like, if that was Darrell Henderson on that run, and that's David Montgomery's biggest downfall, is he's got great feet, he's quick, he's got good burst, but he doesn't have that long speed. Darrell Henderson has that, so if that were Henderson, he house calls that. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both like identical, 5.5 receptions. Kupp 65.5 yards, Robert Woods 62.5 yards. Like, Kupp is the one that you want, right? Like, I was listening to that game, and they talked about how he and Cooper Kupp go out on the practice field like an hour before everybody else, and they throw passes together. And, that's his boy. I think Cooper Kupp is in for a big season. And as Jorgen said right here, Stafford more than 1.5 TDs is like donated money. I think that's his. If you bet nothing else from this game, put a unit, or I might put 2 units because it's minus 149. I might just put 2 units on Stafford over 1.5, like literally, and just be good. Wait a minute. Evan came in and no-sirred me. Monty was the 3rd fastest ball carrier on the week at 20.8 miles per hour in the run. What do I know,
it's
man?
a split second in time, though, man. It's not deep speed. It's not what did he hit at the end of that run? Like 60 miles an hour.
Well, that's a whole different conversation. Max velocity versus sustained speed. There's a big difference in that. But look, listen. I'm the one who said Monty is a top 5 dynasty running back. I love him. So I'm with you on that. Let's talk. So, are you in on Kupp or Woods? Like, let's get that out of the way.
I'm more in on Kupp, not as in on Woods because of his questionable usage, and so that's my only fear with this offense right now is we don't know if it looks like Kupp's the guy, but is he the guy? Because Woods didn't get a whole lot of work last week, and part of that is Van Jefferson catching a long bomb, Cooper Kupp catching a long bomb. We'll see what happens this week, but I think I might want to stay away from those Rams receivers right now until we get a little bit more information about how they're going to play out. But can we talk about Carson Wentz now? Because
Go ahead.
I just love props like this. I just love them. You got the best defense in the NFL going up against a turnover-prone quarterback, and you get, I think the number's like minus 130 on
minus
this.
130,
which is just crazy. Carson Wentz throwing a pick at minus 130 against one of the league's best defenses. It's insane. I got to take that number. I love it. Carson Wentz is going to be running for his life. He's going to be throwing the ball in tight windows like he did last week. The Seahawks, I don't think they got an interception, but they came damn close a couple times. So I love this number. Minus 130 for Wentz to throw a pick.
Well,
just
Wentz
seems like a
can't
bet I'm
go
willing to
2
take every
weeks
week.
he can't go 2 weeks in a row without a pick. I mean, it's just these are the rules. I don't make the rules. He
led the league last season.
He
in
can't
picks. He had
do
like
it.
22.
There's no way. As I'm looking at this slate right now, the props that I'm most confident in are Matthew Stafford 1.5, Jonathan Taylor over 61.5 rushing yards. I like that. Am I on point there? Are you with me on that?
I'm iffy on it. He looked okay week one, and it's not necessarily his fault. His offensive line has to do a good job too. But the Seahawks defensive line, linebacking core is not anything spectacular. And then as well, they did have to abandon the run a little bit. So I think that's part of a factor. If you're looking at last week's game script, they had to abandon the run. Carson Wentz had to pass more because they were getting down early, and that forces Jonathan Taylor out of the running game. If he doesn't break one off early, and the Rams, like we expect to get going real quick, they may have to kind of abandon the run a little bit. So that's why I don't love this number. I think it's low enough that he could hit it, right? But that's my only fear is if they abandon the run and JT has to catch passes instead of rushing, that may be a reason why it fails. And I think the game script is headed that direction.
Dude, what are they doing with JT? 53.5% snap share? That was it for Jonathan Taylor in week one.
Yeah.
53.5% snap share. Now, he did get 17 carries and he got 7 targets, but why is he only playing 53% of the snaps, man? That doesn't...
Naeem Hines. They paid him. I think Naeem Hines is paid as a top 10 running back right now.
What?
Yeah, his new extension. He's like at least a top 15, but I believe he's a top 10 paid running back in the NFL. The backup running back for the Indianapolis Colts.
Shout out to Matt Kelly, player profiler. But yards created per touch for Jonathan Taylor, 4.3, and that's 5th in the NFL. He created, he's good, man. Like, he can overcome some offensive line situations. I still like 61.5 yards for JT, but him playing 53% of the snaps, that honestly, that's egregious. Like, I don't care how much you're paying Naeem Hines. Why is Jonathan Taylor not on the field 70% of the time? Like 70, that doesn't make sense to me, man. I don't get it. But I'm not feeling this game as much, Jay. If you're telling me right now I can, what would I feel really good about? I would just drop 2 units on Stafford over 1.5 touchdowns, and then just take my $50 that I win and call it a day. Just get a dub. You know what I mean? That's probably all I'm gonna touch on this one. To be quite honest with you. Who else do we want to talk about? Do you want to go to you want to talk about the Slim Reaper, or where do you want to go?
Well, do you want to go to the battle of the rookie quarterbacks? Because the Bills game, the Bills and Dolphins game, I don't know if there's weather concerns with that game, but there's no props out there on any sports books. So maybe it's weather concerns, and I just didn't bother to look it up yet. But I was looking for props for all those guys, couldn't find anything. But I like the Bills. I like them to cover. They've dominated the Dolphins especially over last season. If I was picking a team, I would probably pick them to cover. I don't love the over-under, but I think for sure that Josh Allen's going to get going against the Dolphins. The Dolphins do not play them very well. It's just a scheme issue, and so last season they killed them, and I expect it to happen again. But if you want to jump to New England and the Jets, interesting point about this game, I was looking at some futures on Sunday, and I actually placed a bet on the Patriots to cover 3.5 at minus 115. So they opened up as 3.5-point favorites over the Jets. Jets obviously looked terrible against Carolina, and that line has moved all the way to 6 points now for the Patriots, and they're minus 253 on the money line, and the Jets are plus 208. I just don't see a scenario where the Jets have any shot of winning this game. But I'm curious your thoughts on the over-under at 42.5 because it seems like it's low. But what if the Jets just really can't score and you're really banking on defensive scores by the Patriots to kind of lift up their team total for this game?
It is low, man. But, the 2 touchdowns that Zach Wilson threw to Corey Davis came late. He had to scramble around. They weren't like structured plays, which is good. I'm not knocking him for that. But if those wouldn't have happened, I mean, you just can't bank on him running around like Kyler Murray back there and then Corey Davis finally freeing up. It seems low, man. I mean, if you got New England at 3.5, kudos to you. That's awesome. I probably wouldn't touch the over/under, man. I'm just more interested in the prop lines, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so the one that I found that was really interesting is the Damien Harris line. And so last week, we know that he had 23 carries for 100 yards against a pretty stout Miami Dolphins defense. Now, this is kind of the argument you and I have been having throughout the offseason is how do we feel about Mac Jones? Are they going to unleash him? Are they going to throw a ton? Or is it going to be more focused on the running game? Now, this number at 73.5 is a very high number for a player like Damien Harris, who hasn't seen a ton of success in his career. But, again, last week he had 23 carries for 100 yards. This week, is he going to see 25, 30 carries and go for like 150 against this terrible Jets defense? I don't know, but I'd be willing to bet that he probably goes over 73.5. But again, it comes down to, are they going to let Mac Jones throw the ball a ton and really just move the ball quicker down the field instead of this slower, more methodical, beat you on the ground approach that we've seen from the Patriots in the past? Mac Jones last week did throw the ball 39 times. It was a close game, and they were trying to win, and they kind of had to come back a little bit. But I do fully expect Damien Harris to see 20 to 25 carries in this game. And I think with that carry load, he will definitely go over 73.5.
Interesting, man. Damien Harris did have that fumble, but so did Ramondre Stevenson. So, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going back to Damien Harris. He's going to get the ball, and he looked good. I like the over on 73.5. The Jets are not a good defense, and Mac Jones, per the advanced analytics, was really good in week 1 in his first career start. Now, do they want him to throw the ball 39 times? I don't know, but he was 9th in the NFL with 71.4% of his completions coming on play action. I mean, that's what he did at Alabama. He was a play-action quarterback, bombing the ball deep. Number 4 in the NFL after week 1 with deep ball completion percentage at 66.7. And I saw a stat that Mac Jones was blitzed like on 80% of his dropbacks in week 1 versus Miami. Yeah. Like they were trying to get after him, which is why he was exploiting that secondary the way he was. I don't know. Mac Jones over under 244.5. I don't know.
It's tough because he hit that easily last week, but is he going to see the same volume? And I think I want to see it first before I bet on the game script. I do expect them to run a lot in this game. I think we'll see, 7 to 10 out of Ramondre on the ground and potentially 20 to 25 for Damien Harris.
So here's my thing. Y'all know I'm bullish on Mac Jones. I just want to see New England for a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? Like I just want to see what their plan is with him, with that team for a couple of weeks before I really start putting money on Mac Jones or this entire Patriots team outside of the running attack. The player that I have the most confidence in right now is Damien Harris. Nelson Aguilar over under 47.5 receiving yards with 3.5 receptions. He's their number 1 target. I know there's all this stuff about Jacoby Myers. It's Nelson Aguilar. So I actually like both of those numbers for Nelson. I like both of those numbers for Nelson. I like Damien Harris's number. And Jonnu Smith, Jorgen just said Jonnu Smith over 2.5 receptions. That should be, he had 5 last week, I believe. He had 5 receptions last week. Should be good. Jets are not good, but I could see this could be the game where they're like, okay, we should win this game. The Jets aren't very good. Let's work on some things. Let's push the ball downfield. Yeah. Let's pass the ball some more. So I just want to see New England for a couple of weeks. We don't need to see Kansas City. From week 1, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are going to get theirs. Alvin Kamara is going to get, that. But with these new teams, new kind of situations, I just want to see a couple of weeks how they play things out. So I think there are some exploitable matchups in this one, but I just want to see. I need to see it a little bit, just a little bit, man. So anything else in this game before? Did you want to hit Philly now, or do you want to wait? Because I don't want to rush through. If it's like Philly's got some good stuff here. There's some good stuff in Philly, but we didn't even talk. We didn't talk about Zach Wilson or Corey Davis at all.
So they don't have any lines right now. So I looked up their lines. They don't have any. I'm assuming because they're playing the Patriots, so people are afraid to throw lines out there and let them have them get hammered. So I think that's just part of the bookmaker's decision to not put out any lines. But yeah, I mean, we don't have to rush Philly if you want. If you want to hit the Raiders and Pittsburgh, that's a really interesting game because Pittsburgh is favored by a lot. And the only prop I really loved out there was the Darren Waller prop, because Darren Waller is going to see a ton of volume in this offense. It's been clear week 1, 19 targets. He had 7 targets in the very first quarter.
That's crazy.
I don't see a scenario where they just doesn't hit it. So again, I looked it up a little bit because I'm like, okay, how often does he hit this target load? I think he's good for double-digit targets, even against Pittsburgh. I'm not worried about who the hell he's playing. I think the only team that can hold him down is New England. For some reason, Bill Belichick just knows how to do it, knows how to beat tight ends. Darren Waller, 6.5 receptions. It sounds like a lot. 19 targets last week, caught 10 of those balls. Of the times last season, he went over 10 targets. 6 of 7 times he caught 7 or more passes. So again, if we expect him to get 10 targets, 85% of the time he's going to catch 7 of those balls. It just seems like it's bound to happen. Again, you don't want to necessarily take the yards at 74.5 because he may not get the yardage, but the receptions are going to be there because the targets are going to be there.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but we really don't even need to discuss this in depth. He's going over 6.5 receptions. Did you hear John Gruden? Neil from Clock Dodgers, I listened to his Raiders podcast yesterday, and it was a soundbite from John Gruden, and they asked about Darren Waller receiving 19 targets, and John Gruden essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, if we could have thrown it to him more, we would have. He said he's the best player that he's ever coached, and he said if you had a Darren Waller, you'd throw to him every time. I mean, this is what it's going to be, is until they start putting his reception total prop at like 10.5, 11.5, like I'm taking the over every time for Darren Waller. So right here, 6.5 receptions over. And honestly, the yards, who are they going to put on him? Minkah Fitzpatrick? Like, that's what they're going to have to do.
Yeah.
They're going to have to bracket him with the
Bush,
linebacker.
right?
You don't want that. He will annihilate Devin Bush. Now, they might try to bracket cover him with Devin Bush and Minkah Fitzpatrick, but if you put Devin Bush on Darren Waller, he's going to get 20 targets. That will not end well. I like the over on Waller's receptions. Derek Carr, 269.5 passing. I mean, he just had 430, 425, 435.
I know. And they threw the ball, 73% of the time. Second most in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man.
Josh, what's his name? Josh Jacobs isn't all the way 100%. So
yeah, he's not 100% right now. He didn't even finish the game. It was Kenyon Drake, so you will not see probably any Josh Jacobs lines. He'll probably be a game time decision. We'll see. I don't expect a whole lot, but like you said, it's probably going to be a lot of Derek Carr passing. I don't know if I want to take the over on the yards because he might not get there, but I think 300 is very beatable for Derek Carr. And then talking about Pittsburgh, they only had 250 yards against the Bills, so I don't really love any of the overs in that one. I think I'm going to stay away from a lot of their player props, but we can get into it tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, we'll get into Pittsburgh tomorrow. We'll get into the San Francisco-Philadelphia game, and then we'll close out the rest of the Week 2 slate. And if we've got time, jump on to a little bit of college football news. Jacobs' injury status read everything. Yeah, so if Jacobs is hurt
because of everything,
and Kenyon Drake isn't doing his thing, I think the over on Derek Carr's passing yard totals is fine. But we'll get into, like we said, Pittsburgh tomorrow. Philadelphia and San Francisco would be a good one, and maybe we'll have some lines from the Jets. Not that we really care too much, but I am interested to see what Corey Davis does. So appreciate you all tapping in. Jay, good show, man. Everybody loved your graphics, so round of applause and flowers to you. That's dope stuff, man. Like, for real, that's good stuff. Good work. Appreciate y'all tapping in. Make sure you subscribe to the Wake Up with Ray G show.
Wake Up with Ray G show.
Wake Up with Ray G show. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast at. Subscribe to the FTN Network and the Best TV YouTube channel. Jorgen in Germany, have a good day. Everybody in the chat, thank you. We love y'all, man. We out of this thing. Peace.